I apologise for the quality of the previous video. I've still got this cough, but thankfully I have tested negative for coronavirus again, so that's a relief. So I apologise for still clearing my throat, but I'll do my best to keep this video nice and clear for us all. And there's also a lot more to say of this session than there was previously, and I'm a lot more focused today. So, so session 4 of the Lost Man of Phandelver begins and ends again, once more, in the town of Phandelver, except there's a lot more exciting going on this time around. Our player Eliza had recapped the previous session, beginning at 20 past 6 PM, and we ended at just before 22:10 in the evening, so that's rather good. And her retelling as well, for the 5-10 minutes that we spent doing that, was a lot better than the hour-long video that I'd done. And I've got a feeling this video will be quite long as well. Yes, hopefully there's a lot to say about it. We were also quite unsure as to where and when we had sort of finished our previous adventure, like where everyone was at the time. Like, I'd said I'd gone to the graveyard, but I don't know if I was on my way back at the end of the adventure. So at the beginning of this adventure, I didn't know if I'd just arrived there. I didn't know if there's going to be any combat or anything like that, other than our DM had explained that there was something waiting for us there. So it was made abundantly clear that basically the party was just on its way to the Stonehill Inn to meet Sildar and go through what he had learned from the townmaster, Harbin, I believe his name is. I've got his name written down later in my notes, and the party as well had done all the shopping they needed to. Meanwhile, I was at the graveyard. I'd just arrived. I was inspecting the grounds to see if any sort of groundskeeping needed to be done, inspecting the funerary rites, seeing what kind of things people leave, if there's any sort of statues to any gods or shrines or anything like that. And it seemed to be like a humble little graveyard, but there were two things that I noticed when I cast Eyes of the Grave to detect any undead within 60 feet that aren't behind turtle cover. The first thing I noticed is that I didn't see in the entirety of the of this place that there was no gravestone for Phandelver, the woodcarver. So it was abundantly clear now that he wasn't given a proper funeral, at least not here. So his body wasn't taken from the graveyard. When he was killed, he must have been taken somewhere. So we know that the Redbrand bandits are behind his body's disappearance after he was killed in cold blood in the town. The second thing as well is that some of the graves seem to be disturbed, and I couldn't really tell how much, except when I'd rolled perception. I managed to get 20 in total. I rolled 18 plus 2. And I discovered that there was one particular grave that was completely open, except something had crawled out of it. Being a cleric of the grave, I knew what this meant. I could tell very easily, according to my perception check, that this wasn't just someone sort of like digging into the grave to get underneath it, like a grave robber trying to get to a corpse or something like that. This is clearly someone who had escaped this grave from within. We hadn't really found anything except broken branches. There was a single piece of cloth. I thought this might have been a Redbrand cloak or something like that. It wasn't. It was just, I think they mentioned it was just a piece of regular green cloth. And I could tell as well that it was not a skeleton, because if this was a skeleton, there wouldn't be any trace of cloth. The cloth would have disintegrated along with the body, due to time. So this therefore means that we might have some other creature on our hands. I was thinking something along the lines of perhaps a zombie or a vampire, and that suspicion comes about later. And yes, a vampire was my immediate first thought upon entering the Townmaster's Hall and seeing the sight of blood there. More on that later. So yes, there were no footprints or any signs of where this creature had gone, and that's left me rather worried. So that's like my sort of primary arc, I guess. Now that's sort of like part of my primary story now, to find out where this, lost soul is. Like the primary part of my arc, to find this lost soul, and perhaps put them to rest. And that's like my personal thing, rather. I guess that's like my bit of the backstory, because I don't really actually have an active my character Garveld Grimhammer doesn't really have much of like an active backstory for the DM to really work with. Essentially, he's just been in, Neverwinter catacombs for 200 years, just tending to the dead as a cleric there. And this is his sort of first real encounter of the undead outside of the catacombs, if there are any restless dead there. So that's really all I managed to figure out. And then I returned to the inn where the party is waiting. Thankfully, I'm unscathed, and we can now begin to talk with clear heads. So it's at this point where we are now sort of putting our heads together, and we're finding out what Sildar had found out from the town master, what we'd found out from our investigations. So Sildar wants a recap, and I just quickly ask him a question that's been lingering in my mind about Iano Albrecht. I think his name was Iano Albrecht. I failed to remember the name. And I ask him, like, is Iano by any chance blonde-haired? And apparently he is not. He is dark-haired. However much he would like to be blonde, according to Sildar. So that sort of then crosses that theory off, that Iano Albrecht is in fact not one of these Redbrands. Because I thought that he might have been one of the blonde stalkers. I say one of the blonde stalkers. We'll find out that there are actually two. But there was someone who's been stalking our characters, and so we know that basically it isn't him. So it could well be that he is being captured, rather than my idea that he's defected or is in some way involved with them. Then, Shauria is then asking for more info on Iano. If he's, where he was last seen, and we don't really get much more information. We only know that he's a wizard and that he now apparently has dark hair, so that's all we find out at the moment. The town master is too afraid of the Redbrands to do anything. He's intimidated by them. He's essentially a coward, and we get the sense that Sildar is going to somehow usurp this guy or replace the town master, perhaps with someone from the town, perhaps someone from the Lord's Alliance, perhaps someone from Neverwinter. But we get the general idea that this guy is not going to be in power for long, per something he said later on. The town master also tells us as well that he doesn't think much of the Redbrands, that they're mercs, that he doesn't really think they're bandits, and that they'll be moving on anytime soon, and they're really not that big a problem. But he's too intimidated to do anything. He's even too intimidated to go and send word to Neverwinter, even like a raven or a pigeon or whatever you used to, some sort of messenger bird, to send a messenger bird to Neverwinter and get their standing army in here to deal with this Redbrand menace. Because I'm sure that, Neverwinter could wipe the floor with them. Surely they're not that bad. But maybe this person has never seen anyone like them. He might not have ever seen Neverwinter's standing army. He doesn't know what a soldier looks like. So, yeah, not that I'm trying to sympathise with the guy or anything. No, he's a nasty piece of work. So we also know as well, this is something as well I think Shauria finds out, that the town master knows that Iano disappeared about 2 months ago when exploring the manor. So this lends credence now to the theory that he is a prisoner. He hasn't, he's not in any way involved with them. So, so that's really what we find out about Iano. Not much else there. I then want to have a quick word with the innkeeper to let him know that he's got a bit of a problem in his own backyard, and Shauria and Eliza join me. I go to speak to the innkeeper. Shauria is also sort of going to ask a few questions as well, and she's an excellent emotional supporter. She would be if not for the horrible news of the undead in town. And Eliza is sort of leaning against the bar, looking like a surveillance camera. I mean, I think we've all decided that like Eliza is essentially our stealth and a sort of surveillance bot. A very important role in D&D 5th edition, I've noticed. But yeah, I think it's a shame that I don't think we're really getting. I don't think we're using all of her full capabilities. So I might have to. Again, I really must try and find the opportunity to talk to her about what her other talents are and what other interests are besides keeping an eye out and sneaking around. Oh, that's another thing I missed as well. I think in town she bought some studded leather armor just to make sure that she could still use a stealth without being at a disadvantage. And Eliza rolls incredibly well throughout this adventure, noticing everything. Noticing everything he's thinking about. There's nothing she does wrong in this entire game at all. So we then go up to the innkeeper, and I just tell him that he said last night that he'd not heard any disturbances of the undead or in the graveyards, no gravediggers, or any exorcisms that need to be performed. But I tell him that I have seen signs of the undead, and I forget that I'm playing D&D and not a video game where people just go, oh no, I guess we'll pay you to deal with it. I wasn't expecting him to pay me to deal with it, but he got really panicked by this, and I guess this sets the tone of like, undead aren't really common. Magic might not be all that common in this setting, and or at least in our DM's game, and yeah. Also as well, Phandelver doesn't really have any defense against the undead. Like, I'm looking at the map now and I can see that the walls are all crumbled, and I imagine it's only very small dry stone walls, like waist high at most, I would imagine. So yeah, that's kind of worrying, really. I think that the undead have disturbed him so. Especially when I imagine he's the sort of person who's come across adventurers who have all manner of stories for him, and if this is scaring him, especially so close to town as well, because the graveyard's only about 15 minutes away, so I imagine if it's a zombie, it would probably take them about 45 minutes to get there at shambling speed. Or if it's like a vampire, they could probably use some sort of magic to get there. I don't actually know much about vampires in D&D, strangely, considering that I'm a massive, Buffy and vampire fan and whatnot. So, anyway. So yeah, I sort of tell him this, and I'm sort of like handing over a coin to look inconspicuous and ordering some drinks, and I pay him about a gold, and he starts like pouring himself some drinks. And I think I gave him like another gold piece just because he keeps drinking over and over again. So I'm handing him all this money to basically pay for his now drinking habit that he's developed upon hearing the news of the undead and saying, oh, we're all going to die, and oh, we're all doomed, and the Redbrands are the least of our worries now. And like our DM Drax had played Toblin phenomenally. Like, this is what, like, I keep meaning to make a joke in the group about, can we give the DM inspiration for things like this? Because, like, again, I'm new to D&D. I'm new to D&D. I'm new to tabletop role-playing games, and like things like this I don't really get much of in video games. So it's like having someone voice it out and do all this is brilliant. I like that, and it's completely unexpected. So anyway, so poor Shauria, she's trying to calm him down, and failing miserably, I think. Like trying to calm him down, try and get some more information on Yarno and the Redbrands and things like that. While all this is going on, Emile and Sildar are having a chat about what happened at the Town Master's Hall, because Emile's story is now sort of hinging on Sildar's actions. Like, Sildar is the character who actually goes on to say that the ends justify the means. The ends justify the means, and that they will do. He will do anything to get these Redbrands out. And Emile's asking, like, why are you resorting to violence? Why aren't you using diplomacy and things like bribing him or whatever, doing anything to avoid violence? And the Sildar's being quite antagonistic in saying that, like, how do you know that I did, and that failed, yeah? And how do you know I didn't? And he's being very evasive with his answers. He's trying to be very diplomatic, dressing up his I guess lawful evil, I would say, his lawful evil actions, using whatever means he can to ultimately uphold the laws of this town, and his sort of code. He did say that the townmaster is alive, if bruised, if slightly bruised, and then Emile asks quite a powerful question: what makes you better than the Redbrands? And Sildar sort of, and my DM's reaction sort of sent this shiver down my spine at this moment, because he had said, I'm not. I'm right, but I haven't got the exact notes, because like it was just going on so quickly that I couldn't really, I couldn't really follow it all. I couldn't write it down fast enough. He says, like, the difference between me and the Redbrands is I'm in the Lord's Alliance, and as if, because we're not overly familiar with the Lord's Alliance, so that is, I guess, the closest thing to a justification that Emile gets, really. And he then asks, would you do what I did to prevent the problem? And Emile says, I'll do what I can, and I don't like that violence is a possibility, but I may need to resort to that. And Sildar's getting ready to conclude this by saying that this is why I didn't bring you with me, because I don't want you to have to see this, and I don't want you to do the things that I did, but you have to be honest. There may be a time when you will have to resort to that. Also, as well, that he mentions that his superiors know that he's like this, and that he will resort to violence once diplomacy fails. Keyword being once diplomacy fails. Although I guess I'm putting words in the DM's mouth. So it's at this point when Emile has concluded his conversation with Sildar, and he comes to join us at the bar and gets himself a drink. And he's asking, so what's been going on? And I tell him, oh, there's undead. Oh, there's undead. And he responds by saying, this day just keeps getting better and better. He's sort of watching Toblin as well, sort of downing these beers with rather impressive constitution. I don't know if the DM was actually rolling for this guy's constitution, but yeah, he should have done with how many drinks he was doing. I think we've established Toblin's a human as well, so he was drinking like a dwarf, I can tell you that much. So while all this is going on, blonde pursuer enters the inn, peeks around the door, and he spots the group and Eliza, and it's important as well as that to mention that he has consistently spotted Eliza. Now, my theory behind this was that it's because Eliza's doing the perception check, these two are sort of having like a battle of wits, or in this case, a battle of passive perception, or perception rolls rather. But yeah, and our DM calls her the surveillance camera. So we then ask, I think it's Shauria who then asks about this blonde character, and apparently his name is Merrick. He often comes to the inn. He's been to the inn, and he has quite the routine. He orders the exact same food, at the exact same time every single day. And he also works at a place called the Elderly Farm, which is at the southeast of Phandelver. If you saw me signing that out then, like going southeast, yeah, I have to do that frequently. I often have to remind myself of my left and my right as well. Anyway, so yeah, so he goes there all the time, and Shauria then asks him what he orders, what kind of food he orders, and Toblin then says something along the lines of, "Oh, well, hang on a second, I'll have RDM look it up, and and let me just bring up this table on this website," and apparently he has meat and no vegetables, and everyone hates Toblin's vegetables, and then because Toblin's party then proceeds to have a nervous breakdown about no one liking his vegetables. Yes, and he also has a theory as well about how Merrick has peeked in through the inn because he's seen the graveyard and he's seen the undead, and now the town and now he's going to go out and tell everyone and all this kind of stuff. And to be honest, when we learn more about Merrick, it wouldn't be beyond me to believe that he would end up panicking the town. So we leave Toblin to his stupor. And we then go back to Sildar at his table, and we have some news from him as well that we need to, because I think Shauria has just reminded us actually that we also have the business of Gundren. Are we just like going to leave him at Cragmore Castle or whatever? So we then sort of make a point of saying, right, okay. Gundren's been kidnapped. How do we handle this news? Because we've spoken to Barthen, and we barely, by the skin of our teeth, convinced him that he's probably with his brothers, and probably is the key word there. So how do we handle the news? And Sildar basically says, look, we best keep this under wraps. We don't want any more worry in the town between the Redbrands, and I think he mentioned as well the undead as well. So let's just keep this under wraps. So we do. In the meantime, Eliza is looking through the windows of the tavern to see if this Merrick chap is checking in on us. And fortunately, she's able to make it to one of the windows rather sneakily, and makes it with a roll of 17. And she finds out that this blonde man, Merrick, is outside the inn, hidden between some buildings, just under where it says Townmaster's Hall on the map. Sorry, just above there. And he's sort of like looking into the inn, and also the main road leading into the town square as well. As far as she's aware, though, there's sort of nothing menacing about him, nothing particularly... he's not brandishing a weapon. He just seems to be just watching the town, as if perhaps waiting for us to leave and follow us there, because that's typically where we've been so far. So, so we've got a plan, or rather, we're going to spend about an hour planning in real time as well, planning what we're going to do about this guy. So we're thinking of basically snatching and grabbing, and we're thinking, okay, so 3 of us, so Emile, Garveld and Shauria, will go to the Shrine of Luck and hope that this guy follows us. Eliza will then follow up behind him, and we've sort of got him between the 2 of us. And that's sort of how we're thinking of playing it. Another plan was perhaps one of the characters goes towards the sleeping giant, towards the east, and that then perhaps lures the character, and then Eliza goes out the back of the Stonehill Inn and goes south and tries to intercept him as he's following Shauria. We eventually have a plan. We eventually have the plan, and while this is going on as well, the DM's asking, are any of you by any chance looking at the door? And I don't. And none of us are, really. We don't really make a point of it. And I think because the DM sort of asked that, it's sort of unfair for me to go, oh yes, I am. I'm looking at the door. Yes, I've been watching it like a hawk all this time, like Eliza at the bar. That's not really quite fair. I think if the DM sort of catches me out with things like that, chances are I'm going to be like, no, you know? I'm too busy sort of like looking at the other characters. Or typically I'm sort of like, my eyes are glazed over as I'm just sort of thoughtfully stroking my beard. So yes, so the plan is that Shauria, our warlock, she will go upstairs, use a disguise kit, put a makeup on, and she will go out and head east towards the sleeping giant. She will then try and go around the back of the houses and put this guy to sleep, and then bring him back into the alleyways, tie him up, and then once the minute sleep effect has worn off, interrogate him. Eliza is going to remain in the inn watching this guy, while Emile, the paladin, myself, the cleric, I should say as well, Eliza is our fighter, widow fighter. Emile and I are going to go to the Shrine of Luck and sort of just like see if we can lure the guy that way as well. And of course, if there's any trouble, we can come running back. Although we had massively underestimated how great the distance is, because at the bottom of this map it does actually tell you in feet how far the distance is, and it would appear to be about, I think the DM said actually about 400 feet. We were about 400 feet away, so if there was any trouble we'd have to run quite a fair bit. So Eliza's going to wait there, and of course if Shauria got into any trouble, because she's going right near the sleeping giant, Eliza would leap out of the inn. I say leap out, she would rush out of the inn, call over to Emile and Garveld just to say there's trouble going on. We'd rush over and we'd help out a bit. So Shauria dons a disguise, walks down the stairs. Toblin doesn't remember giving this person a room, but he's also probably too drunk and probably too distraught to really object to the way Shauria looks at this point and recognise this person or stop them from going upstairs. So he resumes his drinking anyway. So at this point, she's going down the stairs, and Eliza's sort of looking out the window again, keeping an eye on this guy. And as she goes out, Emile and I follow shortly after to the Shrine of Luck. Shauria's trying to just sort of catch a quick glimpse of this guy who doesn't seem to know that it's her, so she sneaks past successfully. Yes, so, and then she's walking out, and Emile and I go to the Shrine of Luck, quote, standing there like a couple of lemons. Eliza is performing a stealth check just to see if this guy's still there while standing in the window. She's a shadow because she rolls a natural 20 plus 3, so 23, and he's still there. He hasn't noticed anything suspicious going on. Oh yes, here's something as well. Shauria passes Merrick hiding in the alleyway there. She rolls a perception of 10 and notices that he has a bouquet. He has a bouquet of flowers, and he's nervously tapping his foot. This is why I mentioned that it was important to note that he had seen Eliza specifically, because she now has she's now got an Amira. This gentleman is quite nervously wanting to ask her out. Things are going to go very poorly. But before that, Emile and I, in order to look sort of inconspicuous, Emile goes, look at this craftsmanship at the Shrine of Luck, and I'm sort of there thoughtfully stroking my beard and saying, yes, it is rather nice, using my stone cunning ability, which gives me an innate understanding of like I have as a mountain dwarf, I have an innate understanding of like craftsmanship, especially when it comes to dwarven stuff. And the DM says that I am not impressed with the stone cutting, and I'm reminded of like when people watch Bake Off or something like that, or like a show with Gordon Ramsay, where they look at the food and go, oh, it's nice, and then like Gordon or the judges on these Master Chef things then go, oh no, this is terrible, and like this is awful, and you sort of agree with them, but yeah, that is terrible actually, yeah, I see where they're coming from. It was exactly like that. It was that moment where like just instantly, because the DM had decided that it looked shoddy, I'm like, oh well, this is rubbish, I hate it, this isn't worthy of the Lady of Luck, you know. So anyway, while that's going on then, Eliza then rolls 12 perception, and she sees the flowers behind this guy's back. He sort of just flicks them enough for her to see, and just as Eliza sees this, Shauria turns around and casts a sleep spell. And again, we have to be reminded of how it works if there's any save, and I remind her and the DM, there is no save. The save is his hit points. And she rolls 26. And he goes down like a ton of bricks. Yeah, she rolls 26, which is pretty good on 5d8. And yeah, he falls forward, letting go of the bouquet. And Eliza, poor Eliza, says, oh, poor guy. Shauria then turns around to tie him up, and as she's doing that, 3 men appear behind Shauria. And apparently, they've been keeping an eye on the elf. So as it turns out, these 3 are Redbrands, and not only that, but one of them is blonde, which I sort of make abundantly clear on my surprise here, but unfortunately I can't say it because I don't want YouTube to throw a hissy fit. Yeah, so Eliza runs out of the pub and looks at us with us 2 dwarf characters with beaming eyes in the way that only dwarves do at this stonework that we apparently don't like. And you know, she says there's trouble afoot, we need to move. So all 3 of us rush over. And Shauria does a great job of stalling them by saying that this gentleman has been pursuing that rather attractive elf lady, and well, I'm only doing my duty in protecting her because I don't like the way that gentlemen stalk a lady like that. And she's giving it all this, and she's doing a great job of keeping them off her back. And basically her attempts at sort of like acting all innocent are basically lost. Her disguise kit, they probably don't know who. I think they do actually say they know exactly who she is despite this disguise bit, because they don't know any wash ladies that can put any man to sleep from afar. So that tells them that this is someone to be meddled with, and of course it's going to be the new adventuring party. Now Emile comes in to try and bribe them, to try and bribe these Redbrands to go away. And he says, look, we don't want any trouble. I'm sure you don't want to waste your energy fighting us. What say I give you 150 gold pieces and we just walk away from each other? How about that? Yeah, this is all one big misunderstanding. At this point, Merrick has woken up and he's crawling away, and I ask the DM, is he still on the battle map, so I can say, not so fast, laddie, and maybe do some sort of hostage exchange. Unfortunately, he has crawled away, and even then I doubt these guys with the way they've been treating him, because they do say basically he's slow, he's an idiot, and he's not outlived his purpose as such, but he's no longer necessary to their plans. Like we've made ourselves clear to them now, so they don't need to spar on us any longer. So anyway, yeah, so Emile's trying to bribe them with 150 gold. And he's trying to get a bit closer, and they're saying, not so fast, stay where you are. his plan, and it's a fantastical plan, is to use his Word of Radiance, which has a range of 5 feet. So he wants to get in between these 3 guys and use this ability, which is like an AoE ability, so it chooses, is it 6 creatures? Each creature of your choice that you can see within range will succeed on a Constitution saving throw or take 1d6 radiant damage. So he wants to choose these characters to hit them with 1d6 damage on a Constitution saving throw as well. But they're not going to let him get that close. And I don't think he'd even declared at that point that he wanted to use Word of Radiance, so it wasn't necessarily meta as such. And the DM was clearly saying that these guys don't trust anyone here. They certainly don't trust his claim that he's got 150 gold, which I don't think he had. I think even combined, the party didn't actually have 150 gold. So he's sort of getting this pouch ready, and he's saying, look, you know, I need to come forward. Look, I'm only a dwarf. I can't throw it that far. You know, you're going to have to let me get closer to pass it over. And then this guy is really adamant, and he's saying, no, throw it over. I'm sure a dwarf as strong as you can throw it over. And Emile's trying to sort of negotiate with the DM about inching forward, and our DM's not having any of it. And I think at this point, a combat has to happen. There is no way that we can convince this guy. There's no way we convince this guy we can throw the gold over for him to count, and he's not going to let us leave until he's counted it all. So, Emile, after trying his very best, puts his hand in his pouch and brings up the thing. Roll initiative, says our DM. And because of that, if ever I had inspiration sooner, I would have given it to him. I gave my inspiration that I'd earned in the last session for using Eyes of the Grave to detect the smell of poo, basically. I gave him my inspiration for that moment. I thought, you know what, now's as good a time as any. I give him my inspiration, and he uses it in this fight as well, and I'll tell you how that goes. So combat ensues. The Redbrands roll 22, Eliza 18, Shauria 17, Emile 16, and I, rolling a d20 instead of clicking on the initiative button on D&D Beyond, I roll a 1. Not that it would have helped to get 3 initiative. So the Redbrands, they get to go first. And things don't look good in the first round of combat already. Shauria gets hit for 4 damage by one of the Redbrands' attacks, and she uses her Hellish Rebuke as a reaction. Dexterity saving throw of 13. The Redbrand rolls a 6, and he takes 10 damage, and he's mortally wounded by this. Like he could go down at any time because of this. And her Hellish Rebuke is, now I didn't write it, I don't think I've got it spelt right because it is in Portuguese. Again, this is Shauria's thing really of saying, I think she says Shubaku, which is armpit in Portuguese for our Portuguese DM, bless him. Oh yes, and because this Redbrand can make 2 attacks, she takes another 8 damage, and her hit point maximum I think is 17. So, and I think she actually had heals the full amount when she leveled up. So that's 12 damage that she's taken. She's already taken 5. She's only got like 5 hit points left. Things aren't looking good. Eliza gets hit by another nat 20. Oh yeah, this is the thing as well. Yeah, the DM had rolled 3 nat 20s, and he showed the screenshots of this. At least the first 2, anyway. So Shauria was hit by like a nat 20. Then Eliza gets hit, I think. I think someone else gets hit. I think it's Emile who gets hit as well, because I'm quite far back at this point. I haven't joined the fight yet. Well, not necessarily. And she takes about 7 damage, I think it was. Emile then finally gets to do his stuff, and He uses his Word of Radiance and does 5 damage to 2 of the NPCs. The boss shields his eyes, and I love this move, by the way. There's something about this that seems just perfect in my mind's eye. That the boss shields his eyes with his short blade with this attack. And one other NPC as well is blinded. And this was the DM taking a small mercy upon us. So, because we weren't doing all that well. Not able to quite get into close enough to the fight. I used Toll the Dead and miss. I wanted to use my Shield of Faith, but our DM says it does not stack with Shauria's mage armor, so I wanted to boost her AC from, I think, 13 to 15, so that she has a bit more of a fighting chance. Not that it really would have done much with the way the DM was rolling. At this point, Sildar joins, seeing the chaos, and again, I think this is another small mercy on the DM's part. With his sword and shield, and he rolls 18, so I think he goes before Eliza. Or after Eliza, I can't quite. Yeah, I think he goes after Eliza, if memory serves. So then, the boss of the Redbrands, because it's now round 2 of the combat. The boss rolls a nat 1 to attack Emile, and he drops his sword when Emile. And this is another thing I love. Again, it just feels right in the mind's eye. Emile punches this guy's arm, and I think he drops his sword, and Emile punches his arm. So he's now only got one arm. He's now only got one sword, because I think all 3 of the Redbrands are wielding 2 swords, and that's why they can make 2 attacks. I think that's basically the end of his turn. He doesn't do anything. The blinded Redbrand now makes a hit and does 8 damage miraculously, and Shauria goes down. I think she's at like -3 hit points at this point. And then she, on a turn, will make death saving throws. And from what I understand, I was under the impression that you rolled Constitution for your death saving throws, but I think it's your preferred stat that you're like proficient in. So on my saving throws, for instance, I'm a cleric, so mine would be +4 in wisdom and +2 in charisma. So 4 wisdom. But like Shauria's got like a +5 in her charisma, so I think she gets like a 19 on her first death saving throw. So she's quite safe there. Where am I now? So now there's another bloke at the bottom of the map, of this battle map. I should get the image up, really. I think I took a screenshot, so if I can get that'd be great. This person attacks. He misses once, and he hits for 18 and does 4 damage there. So that's hit her quite hard. Well, I mean, no, actually, no, sorry, it doesn't hit her hard. I think the description was actually that it barely, it like slices into her arm, but it doesn't really hurt all that much or do all that much. And I think she's got the HP to survive it as well. She's got 20 HP. Yeah, so she's all right to fight a bit longer. Now, this is where things get crazy, and I think even our DM had to sort of pause to think about this. So Eliza hits this bloke. She does 15 plus 5, so she gets a dirty 20, with Elvish Fury, according to our DM. She lifts him up with a rapier again and finishes him off. Like this move we've seen a couple of times now, but it works. It works. It's phenomenal. And finishes him off with 9 damage. She then uses her second wind for 4 HP, and then she uses her action surge to get an extra action and hits for 22, dealing 8 damage. I don't know who that was toward, though. I think it was the blinded character. So Sildar now joins the combat, and he kills, I think, the blinded character for 8 damage. Shauria does a death save, so she gets 19, and that's 1 success. Emile then uses his inspiration to try and hit the boss of the Redbrands here, the last remaining one, and he misses. He rolls a 9 and a 10, and he misses. And I'm just thinking, and I'm just sort of sat there thinking, I don't know whether to be glad about this or not. I was imagining, I want to take a bit of a tangent here. I was imagining that when I was at the graveyard, I would be cornered by a few of these Redbrands, presumably the 3 that were facing near. And they would do something to annoy me in the Garden of Phandelver. I would use my inspiration to gain advantage on my inflict wounds, which is 3d10, so between 3 and 30 damage. And even if I missed, it would have been better than a Warhammer. Well, I say that actually, it was +4, so the same as Emile's Warhammer, really. Yeah, and he uses Old Faithful and he misses, and I'm just thinking, I could use that to do 30 damage. So he misses anyway, and I once again miss with Toll the Dead, but I stabilise Shauria with Spare the Dying, because I'm now standing between, sort of like between Emile and Shauria, sort of standing on the blinded guy's dead body now. Emile, poor Emile, he gets hit once again, and he takes 5 damage. And at this point, as he's going down, the boss is now running, and I think I've missed something here. No, I haven't, sorry, yeah. No, the boss is now running away, and I managed to, as a reaction, sort of get 2 damage on it. Sorry, no, I wasn't between Emile and Shauria, that comes later. So, I'd managed to move to where, like, towards the boss's, I think, like, right flank, so I was on his right arm, just above him on the battle map. So you got me, the boss, and then Emile there. That's how I'm seeing it in my mind. Anyway, I think like, there on the camera. I don't know. Anyway, the point is that I do 2 damage. It doesn't graze him at all, really. And Eliza, because of her Wood Elf heritage, saves the day by giving chase. She runs 35 feet, and that's just a standard move speed. She rolls 22, and she does 13 damage to this guy. He's not dead yet. He's very close to dying, and he is going to run away again later. So I then go back to Shauria. I then stand on the body of the blinded guy between Shauria, fallen on the ground, and Emile on the ground. I then heal Shauria with 10 HP, and I heal Emile with 6 HP. And our DM describes this rather strangely. Like in Daddy Caring mode. I didn't actually manage to get the rest of it. But he says, like in Daddy Caring mode, Garveld puts both of his hands out and he brings back Shauria and Emile graciously. I say the word graciously a lot, and that's another, like, immediately as well, isn't it? But I rather like that idea, that the idea of that I am the 2 arms of Phandelver's weighing scales, and I'm bringing both back up. You know, because I've sort of imagined that his holy symbol when doing like a prayer or whatever is something like that. You know, as if to say that's the arm, the skeletal arm holding the weighing scales in each arm, so something like that. I don't know. I need to work on it. But yes, yeah. So I revive them, and our paladin Emile, he says, "I'm not very good at this, am I?" And yeah, because I think he's gone down the most. I think he's the only character who's gone down. Well, save for Shauria, actually. Yeah, he was been the only character who's gone down. So yes, Eliza runs after this guy again. She does 20. She rolls 24 again, phenomenally, and she rolls 13 damage to hit. Again, chasing this guy after 35 feet, and RDM asks those immortal words, "How do you want to do this?" To which she makes a speech about bullies that I wasn't able to record because there was so much there that was all incredible and I couldn't catch it all. And she just kills him. Just after that, I think, just stabs him through the heart and makes his heart explode. So yeah, so now we're at this point. We're now sort of catching our breath. sort of gathering together and just making sure everyone's okay and just doing okay. And Eliza, she shows sympathy for Merrick, saying, I feel sorry for Merrick. And he says, I'm right here. And he's sort of now crawling back, he's undoing his binds, and he returns the rope to Shauria, and immediately, with doe eyes, just looks at Eliza, enchanted. And I see a lot of myself in Merrick, because I wrote this down. Merrick returns the rope and simps for Eliza. And this is exactly, and I can't, my partner watches these videos, so I hope she sees this, and I hope feels the same way about Merrick as she does for me. Because I certainly feel for her the way Merrick does for Eliza. Except this isn't fictional, of course. So then I'm starting to think, do we trust him? Like, is he just pretending to be an idiot? Because if he's pretending, he's doing a very good job. And our DM in the character's voice, like before with Toblin, the innkeeper of Stonehill, was saying, "Oh, maybe your DM's just a really good actor," and that is a possibility. Yeah, absolutely. So, we make use of Merrick by saying that he should go over and check the boss's body, and he does, but he doesn't find anything there. And Eliza goes then to say, look, why don't you wait at the inn and we'll think of something for you to do. And he obeys immediately, and I think we've got ourselves quite the helper. Although I am of the persuasion that I mean, as much as I like having sort of NPCs, minions, cohorts and whatnot, as much as I like having servants and whatnot, I don't like putting innocent people such as Merrick in danger, so I'd rather not bring him on our quest to find Yarno in Tresender Manor or clearing out the Sleeping Giant. I don't think he's really got the constitution for it either, or the wisdom or intellect. I don't know, maybe he's got wisdom, maybe not so much intellect. Anyway, so we're sort of looking for these two, so we're looking at it, so we're still on the battle map now, and we see only two bodies, and I say, oh, hang on, am I on the third guy? And everyone's like, yeah, you're standing on top of that guy. So I'm there sort of role-playing as, I was wondering why I'd grown a foot. And yes, I'm sort of standing on the remains of someone. I loot the body, and I find 20 gold pieces, to which I divide them amongst the party, and I put 5 gold pieces in my arms box. So that's now 10 gold pieces in there, which I've got a feeling is going to, again, be needed for a major, and I'm talking major, leaflet campaign for the PR we're going to need. So, we also find a note saying, finish the job, signed by Glassstaff. And we wouldn't have known that if I didn't ask the DM, is it signed by anyone? Because I was thinking it might have been something to do with the Black Spider. But no, it's this person called Glassstaff. So that's a new name to add to the I guess the notes are journals. So, I turn to Sildar and ask if he's familiar with the name, and he says no, but it's safe to assume that that's the boss. We find then another boss, we then find another note on the boss who attempted to run away. Oh yes, his name is Maxwell. Sorry, I should have said earlier that the boss is by the name of Maxwell. They drag the body over, check the belongings, and they find another note saying, get your boys in line, just do it. Glassstaff. So, at this point, we're now deciding what to do with the bodies. I'm filled with dread for 2 reasons. 1, I know exactly where this is. I knew exactly where this was going. And 2, I'm a cleric in the service of Kelemvor. I don't think Kelemvor's really big on sentiment. He doesn't seem like the type. As long as souls get to him, that's what matters most. I don't think he really cares so much about funerary rites. But my belief is that he does care. Whether I'm wrong or not, I mean, for all I know, that the god that might collect me at the end of a 10-day might well be Miracle, so a demigod of necromancers. So that'll be fun to find out when I'm dead. So we then have to decide what we're going to do with the bodies. I'm suggesting that, look, there are undead about. I'd rather bury them so that this thing doesn't come out and try to feast on them. Because I imagine there's a lot of undead enemies that either want to turn other undead into undead, or they want to eat them, or there's a necromancer about. Like, for all I know, this glass staff person has a necromancer in their employ. They may well be a necromancer. I don't know. I don't particularly want to find out either, at level 2 at least. So, Emile and Sildar get the idea of pinning the bodies around the building. Around the buildings. Tresender Manor Sleeping Giants. The Town Master's Hall. They want to send a message. And I think it's a fantastic idea. Like out of character, speaking as John. I think it's a fantastic idea. But I proposed an alternative. Why don't we instead get the cloaks and pin them around the Town Master's Hall? The cloaks, the reason being, because the only way anyone's going to get a Redbrand cloak is if they are joining or if they are dead. And if they're covered in blood as well, it means to say that they're probably dead. So Sildar takes the cloaks and he says, right, I'll deal with these. And he pins them around the Town Master's Hall. Which should have been enough. But Emile is asking, how far do we want to go with this? And the party and Sildar sort of agree that, look, we should go all the way. So we take one of the bodies, and this is a point actually I need to ask what we did with the other two. We take one of the bodies, and we were originally going to take it through the town square up to the Town Master's Hall and sort of show people that, hey, look, the Redbrands are dead, someone's actually standing up to them. We decided instead to take it around the back between, so where this Merrick was. We decided to try and take it around the back and sort of take it to the entrance of the Town Master's Hall that way. To try not to alarm people too much. Now, we really could have done with one of those cloaks spare. Because people got panicked. Mothers were shouting in their homes to lock the doors and close the windows and don't let anyone in because the Redbrands are coming and they've killed someone. And there wasn't really any identifying information for this body that we were carrying. We then take the body to the Town Master's Hall, and as we enter we come across a poster that just simply says reward, or as our DM pronounced it, reward, which I rather did enjoy. I thought that was very nice indeed. But unfortunately we didn't really start to read it. I also ask as well for I think it's Emile actually who asks for Sildar to give up one of the cloaks, and he tears one off one of the nails, and he hands it over to Emile, and they sort of just hold it sort of just rest it on top of the body. We then go into Town Master's Hall, Town Master Harvin, and he's asking rather snottily, "Don't you people know how to knock?" As he says, looking down his paperwork, sort of signing it, and doing all this. And he says something else as well. I didn't write it down either. He says, "Yes, well, come back tomorrow. We're not open yet," or something like that. Anyway, he looks up and he sort of shrieks at the sight of this body that these people are just dragging in. Like they're just handymen. Just they're just coming to do the job or whatever. They're like construction workers or whatever. It's very much like I'm reminded of the Money Pit in a way. Where people just sort of come and go as they please, and you've got Tom Hanks sort of running around, trying to get the situation under control or whatever. And then he sees the body and he's you know, I don't know if it's beginning to smell or whatever, but he then he's starting to gag, he's nauseated, and then eventually he vomits, I think into some sort of waste paper bin or whatever, and he then sort of, he's wiping his mouth or whatever, just as we're taking him to the bell tower, because we asked the DM if there's a bell tower. Just as the town master is sort of wiping the puke off his mouth, he's also got blood there as well, and I sort of noticed the blood. I go into the town master, I'm sort of looking at it, checking his desk to see if there's any meat or anything like that that may have caused that blood. There's nothing on his desk that suggests food, so I'm thinking, okay. And I walk away again, you know, being really creepy, whatever. And I suspected that he's a vampire because of this blood dripping from his mouth. Of course, everyone else suggests it could be a wound from Sildar's physical persuasion. That was the word of the day, or rather the term of the day for this entire session, is that Sildar used that a lot, that euphemism a lot. So, we take the body up the bell tower. We wrap the cloak, or rather I say we, I think it's Emile who's doing pretty much all of this. He takes the cloak, wraps it around the eyes of this person, as well as around the neck as well. I don't know how he does it exactly. And he attaches it to the top of the bell. So every time this bell rings, this body is also going to clang upon it as well. Probably making it ring a few more times than it really should have done. This is the most morbid executive toy I have seen in my life. Or rather, not seen, but, well, yeah, seen in my mind's eye. And he does, and the player Emile, he does say it's the most metal thing he's ever done, and I agree, it is metal, it is awesome. For the sake of the group, rather than the sake of the party, Garveld sort of like looks at this and sort of weeps a tear of joy, because he associates the bell, the bell is in the death knell, as being like one of the symbols of Kellenvor, and he thinks that this is beautiful. If I were a better role player and someone who was better, no, let me repeat that. Let me rephrase that. If I were a competent role player and I were competent at improv, I would be able to object to this in some way. Say no, I don't agree with this. But I had to go along with it for the sake of the party and avoiding drama, and we're already coming up to about 10 o'clock anyway. Typical ending time for our sessions. So we go along with this, and Emile wants to go further with this and like find some paint and paint the word scum on the bell tower or something like that, or on this guy's body. And there isn't that we can see, thank you. Shauria, while all this is going on, Shauria, on a lighter note, still morbid by the way, Shauria's asking about how my god feels about rescuing her. And I give a very long-winded answer because that's what I do. I can't speak coherently. So, like, whenever I make an action in this game, it literally takes me about 30, 40 seconds, maybe just under a minute, explaining what it is I want to do, and just, like, listing other ways of saying the exact same thing. So I think this is the reason why she only said 4 words in response then, which was lucky for us then, because I explained, you know, like how does Kellenvor feel about, you know, you rescuing us, like you know, you're taking souls from him, and I said, look, Kellenvor doesn't want people to die early or before the time. He doesn't want people to die foolishly either. As long like he doesn't mind people living longer to be judged further, you know, to sort of, you know, live their life and be judged. And this is something as well that I think I'm going to have a word with Emile about. That come the 10 day of being in Kellenbor's realm and being judged, and a deity receiving them, it may not be Moradin that comes to see Emile. Now, I was supposed to have a tab open about the Dwarven Gods. In fact, let me have that up now, because I was going to say some lines of, it may not be Moradin that's coming to see you at the end of this 10 day. Why did I just see Dwarven Thrower in Google search? Quick tangent. Dwarven Thrower. You gain a... Okay, it's a Warhammer. Very rare. It requires attunement by a dwarf. You get a +3 attack to bonus and damage rolls with this magic weapon. It has the thrown property with a normal range of 20 feet and a long range of 60 feet. When you hit with a ranged attack, it deals an extra 1d8, or if the target is a giant, 2d8. Immediately after the attack, the weapon flies back to your hand. Proficiency with a Warhammer allows you to do proficiency bonus to the attack roll for any attack you make with it. I'm just going to quickly bookmark that. I like the sound of that a lot. Anyway, yes, so it may not be this may not be the character that receives him. It might rather be Abathor. I'm just having a look on the Forgotten Realms wiki. Fantastic resource, by the way. Neutral evil dwarven god of greed, also an exarch of Bane, who is the Faerunian god of tyrannical oppression, terror and hates, which could well be the, I guess, Oath of Vengeance kind of god, perhaps. Yes, I am rather worried, so I'm going to let Emile know that things may not go the way he plans when he ends up in this realm of grey that he had seen before. Anyway, on a lighter note, and getting back on the topic, we then descend the stairs of the bell tower, and the townmaster is sort of mumbling away about how you seem like capable adventurers. Have you seen the poster? And like he's sort of walking out, and as we're walking out, he says, "Welcome to Phandelver." Really terrified. And I hate to say it. I hate to say it, but I felt sympathetic towards Townmaster Harvin. I hate him, but when he said "Welcome to Phandelver" at the end of that, I guess I know it was for comic effect, but yeah, it didn't make me sort of feel sorry for him like that. We've just walked in this town, we started killing people, and now he's terrified of us. But I don't know. Maybe we've seen the last of that nasty bag of washing. If we find any evidence that he is colluding with these people. So I've made some notes on our next session of things we need to sort of deal with. The first thing is protect and make use of Merrick, Eliza's sort of love interest. We need to take the sleeping giant in and Tresander Manor. We need to deal with the bodies swiftly soon. I don't know why I put swiftly soon. We need to also have a long rest as well. This was something that was discussed. It is about lunchtime, so we're thinking about if we have a long rest, we might be able to have a night raid on Tresander Manor. And what's it called? The Sleeping Giant Inn. I should know because it's right there on my notes. Look into the orcs on the poster because the DM had given us some information on that. To check out the undead leads, see point 2 that should be. Oh, and also as well, keep an eye on Emile with the oath. So I think during our long rest, Emile and I are going to be having a bit of a chat because the only person he feels he can really talk to that may sort of agree with his mindset is, or like see things from his point of view, is this old dwarf who is the least dwarven dwarf this person probably knows. He's lived in Neverwinter most of his life. He never really got on with the Dwarven Pantheon, but I think he's going to provide some hopefully valuable spiritual advice. Fingers crossed. So yes, that was session 4. Absolutely delightful. It's like at the end of all these sessions, I always want to play further, but we ended on a spectacular point there. We're ready for a long rest, and with any luck, we might get 2 things done. We might get the sleeping giant in and the mana done next. But because if I look on the map, it looks like it's in ruin. Like, I know it's a manor, but it can't be that big. It can't take that long to do. So the sleeping giant in. You know, I think we've dealt with most of the Redbrands that would be there, so I don't think that's going to take long. Maybe loot it, I don't know. And then Tresenda Manor. Honestly, I can't see that taking all long. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to be attending session. Well, I don't think there's going to be a session 5 this coming Saturday. Because I'm going to be going to my granddad's, but the gang ought to be doing a one-shot if I'm not available, and I certainly hope that if I'm not available that evening, that they have a wonderful one-shot, because our player Emile is going to be DMing. Emile's going to be DMing, and he's going to be running this sort of investigative style game. I think it's D&D, I'm not sure. But he also wants to play as well the Avatar RPG as well. That I think that's powered by the Apocalypse. I think it's called Avatar Legends. Recently had a Kickstarter. Looks really good. Like, I'm not a fan of Avatar at all, but even I was like, all these things look cool. I love the aesthetic of it. It's one of those things like I'm turned off by so many RPGs because of the art style, and it's such a ridiculous thing, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, it's your imagination that counts. But yeah, but that game is a game that I want to play just because it looks good. And given that it's Avatar, I imagine that a lot of the art is going to be of the same sort of style and aesthetic. So I could probably get into the entirety of that game because it looks good. Same with D&D. Well, not the same with D&D. Like, there's a lot of the art in D&D I love. Some of it not so much. But I can get into the campaigns and adventures because they look so good. Anyway, that was a rather long tangent, and probably rather it's going to cause a lot of debate at the end if anyone even watches these videos. So yeah, so thank you ever so much if you've made it this far. I very much look forward to session 5 when it eventually happens. And yeah, I look forward as well to relaying the events of that. And I wish my group, although I should tell them this in Discord anyway, I wish my group the absolute best adventures and luck and enjoyment with the one-shot. And I think, fingers crossed, if that goes well enough, that player will also be perhaps writing their own campaign of sorts. I think we all are sort of curious about things like that. So yeah, I'm certainly very much into the world writing and such. So yes, thank you for watching. Take care, and I'd like to have a clever quip, but I don't. Ta-ta for now.